Yeah, I think so. The energy was really good across the board. We have kind of two separate entities on defense right now. We got kids that have been around the system and are back and have a lot of knowledge, and then we have some newcomers, whether it be incoming freshmen, transfers, and/or junior college players that don't have as much or have zero retention because they weren't here, and they're in the process of learning the system, learning the verbiage, learning the details. So there's kind of two different uh, subcultures going on within practice today, which is kind of cool to watch. But the energy overall in both groups is really good. Yeah, I think they've already taken it upon themselves a little bit to make sure to teach those guys. I mean, I've seen it as we walk through the building. We couldn't be around the guys as much as coaches probably would like during the off season, but you go past the meeting rooms and you see older guys in there watching film with new players, whether younger or new to the program. And then when we go out and walk through and drills, they're kind of steering them in the right direction and coaching them. I can hear them coaching in the background. There's not a bunch of jimmy jacking around back there. It's guys, coaching up other players while the ones are in the walkthrough, and the two is coaching the three, and then when the twos go, the one is coaching the threes and the fours. So it's kind of cool to see. Yeah, I think Nash got some good experience last year. He was in a lot of football plays, but he's just got to become a guy that's you know he's a. I think he belongs in this league. I think that he should be out there playing football along with a lot of those defensive linemen. But those guys, I think there's a natural progression that teams go through and players go through, and it's you know probably believing they can play or they can win, and then knowing they can play and they can win. And I think those young D linemen are at that phase where they need to know they're going to walk out there and they're going to be good football players.
Who are you going to look at as far as JoJo and Cam Taylor in the secondary, kind of guys that maybe step up for those guys?
Yeah, I think the that back end, that defensive back group, counting the nickel in that group too, as JoJo played. Obviously Deontay's gone and Markel's gone and JoJo's gone and Cam's gone, but there's players that were in the program that I feel good about. There's players that have transferred in and or come from junior college or freshmen that are even here right now that have all looked really well in practice. So I can't tell you who those people are going to be. There's going to be a lot of battling right now, and then we're going to find out who's going to be the next player at that nickel position. Is it the guy that's already in that room? Is it Javen Wright? Is it Isaac Gifford? Is it one of those other guys, or do we need to pull that position from corner safety depending on who wins one of those battles on the outside? So that'll be that's always the fun thing for me is figuring out who's the best 11, getting them on the field and finding the position for those guys. Well, I mean, I think there's pluses and minuses about playing every defense, and it kind of probably depends on who you have in the program, what's your assets, what's your liabilities, and then who are you playing week to week. What personnel group does it allow us to match up best with? And right now, with what's going on in the Big Ten, being able to play some of the four-man front, some of the even stuff, whatever you guys call it, that allows us to match up versus 10 personnel and 11 personnel a little better. And even some 12, depending on what the other teams are doing, then being able to jump into odd with the guys understanding the spacing and understanding the fits and the system and how it all works together, being able to jump in those things versus two backs and or 12 personnel with two big tight ends. I think being multiple is good. Just like I heard Coach Whipple say, if they get in 6 offensive linemen or 4 receivers or whatever they're going to do, somebody has to work on it. Us being able to jump into odd spacing versus 11 and or even versus 12, that gives offense something else to work on for us too.
I know there's so many things this kind of year. When you think about that position, when you go to I got one or the other. What would you like that player to be able to do? Assuming he can't do everything what position would you like to
Well, I think JoJo had a pretty unique skill set where he was a big guy, so he could be physical in the run game. He was a good blitzer off the edge, but he was also had the movement skills to be able to cover just about anybody we played. Not to say that we'd always want him out there one on one versus everybody, but he could go out there and cover versus just about anybody we played. When you look at that person at that position, that's a unique skill set to be able to do both. When we find out whoever that's going to be, whatever their assets are, we have to use those, and their liabilities we have to try to cover it up. So before in our defense, it's been a corner, and we played more coverage with that guy and got him out of the run fit some. And sometimes it's been more of a linebacker-ish player, and he's going to be in zone coverages underneath. He's going to be in the run fit heavily. We're going to get him out of the coverage liabilities that he has, and hopefully you got a player, similar to JoJo. I don't think you can ever say this is the next JoJo or the next Cam or the next anybody, because they're all individuals. But if you have a guy that has a similar skill set, then you can kind of have the best of both worlds. Yep. He's gonna get some work there this spring for sure. Yeah. I think he's a guy that can, he can really run, and I don't know what his ability is yet, because I've seen him today. I watched, before we came up here, we watched probably 20 plays before we got up here. So I need to see what he can do in that coverage modality. I think we know what he's really good around the football. He can play in the run. He can definitely blitz off the edge. Now I need to see what he can do out there in coverage a little bit. Yeah, I think Isaac is close to JoJo, where he has a pretty good skill set. He played safety in high school. Right now, JoJo probably a little bit better in coverage than Isaac. Isaac might be a little bit better around the ball. Javen, he's been so banged up over I think, but he's got the sky's the limit for his skill set. He started at corner for us, and he fastly grew out of that. I mean, he's 6'3" plus, and he's got some good weight on him. So his coverage ability is really good for his size, which is an extreme plus. Yeah.
How nice it is to have a veteran guy like that, pop up in that vocally when you first team months away. I mean, everyone's excited about being on
Yeah, and I think leadership can come from anywhere. Doesn't necessarily have to be the best player. It doesn't even have to be a player that plays. But normally, when your best players are your leaders, that probably carries the most weight. And to have a guy like that, that's got so much respect for the way that he works, just the way that he carries himself, the way that he does everything you ask him to do, and then on top of it, he's been a 2-year starter or whatever. He's played a lot of good football. I think when you have a guy like that that's barking, and it means a lot. And he's done it. I think when he was young, he was just, he was a pit bull out there, and he was, saying things, and he probably didn't even know what he was saying. And he's fine tuned that leadership, where I think he kind of understands now, when do I need to be positive with somebody, when do I need to come down on somebody. So I thought he's done a really good job over especially the winter, of developing the leadership.
What about guys that like Caleb Tanner, some of those guys trying to get more pressure on the quarterback?
Yeah, I think those guys, when you go back and watch the film, the exciting thing was those guys, their pass rush ability and their mechanics and what they did on film greatly improved. Now, the disappointing thing was we left a few out there that I know myself and Coach Dawson watching it thought that they could have definitely had those sacks. So I think if Coach Dawson, he's already been working on that with those guys, and if we can just get to some of those ones that we left on the table, I think that pass rush, Garrett, Caleb, and Blaze, and Jamari, and then the inside guys are rushing the passer better too. So in that thing, it's really got to work together, because sometimes when you got just werewolves rushing off the edge, you've got to create that step up lane, and those inside guys got it. And when those guys are collapsing the edge, those inside guys got to push that quarterback right and left, and we've got to be able to cage that quarterback and then get him, sack the guy. So I think, but I'm excited about where those guys are at. I watched them today. No pad practice, probably not a very fair evaluation of anybody, but those guys looked like they knew what they were doing. They looked like they had great effort rushes, and I like the mechanics out there. Yeah. The defensive line depth, along with finding out who's going to play in the back end, probably the top two priorities as far as personnel goes. The good news about the defensive line is there's, because of the attrition, those guys going to the NFL draft, there's a lot of reps to go around, and those guys are going to get a ton of reps, which is a blessing and a curse sometimes when you're a defensive lineman. You want the reps, but it's a long day of practice. But I think that we're going to have a huge library of reps to kind of look at, show them what they've done right, show them what they've done wrong, and to really evaluate who should be number one, who should be number two, and so on and so on.
Is that what you saw, and what about his progression
Yeah, he's going to be really important. I think he's right. There were some times last year where, he was not in the right spot, which happens with a young guy. I mean, everybody. The crazy thing about Ty is everybody thinks that guy's been around here forever, and he's like a young guy. I mean, he's not that old. So I think that his progression that he's made in the last couple of years is good. Now he needs to get that thing to the next level. He's been there. He's done that. He knows what it's like to play in games in Memorial Stadium. He knows what it's like to play against. I mean, shoot, last year he played against Ohio State. He played against Michigan. He knows what it's like to play against those guys. Now, can he win those one-on-one battles? Can he get some more TFL for us? Can he stay in his gap and make the ball bounce? Yeah, I think it challenges everybody. Every quarterback has their own. I know Coach Whipple would probably disagree, saying that they should be going here to here to here. But every quarterback kind of knows where he wants to throw the ball. Some guys like to get it downfield. Some guys like to get the easy throws in. Some guys would rather run it than throw it. Some guys would rather hang in the pocket. So it's going to be interesting to see those guys and see how that develops. I think these guys are a little bit more pocket passers, so I think we're going to get a little bit more opportunity to rush the passer in the spring, and hopefully we can get home. It also challenges the DBs. I don't know, seeing the same guy like you alluded to, you can kind of know where his eyes are going. Is he going to look at the guy he's throwing at? Is he going to look and throw to the next guy? So seeing some new faces, some new arms in there is going to be really good for the defense. No, Bill's going to help us some on defense. Right now he had a lot of things to get organized with special teams, but he coached a couple of defensive drills today. So we're looking forward to having Bill help us on defense. Yeah, he's gonna right now he's gonna help everywhere. Just kind of flow a little bit. Obviously he's got some experience with the defensive backs. I'm coaching the nickels right now, but he's got some experience with those. So I think that with that back seven is probably where he feels most comfortable. Even though he did coach a little bit on the defensive line, so I think right now for us just to use him in individual drills and it might be some of those drills where everybody has to go, like you're playing buzz reroute, safeties, nickels, linebackers, everybody has to get in that drill work, but that's something that he can do for us and take that drill over with ease and be able to really free up some hands so we can individualize the practice a little bit more. Yeah, I think, shoot, you watch the film, and Quentin, when you watch it, Quentin looks like a lot of the other players in the Big Ten, but he looked like a young guy, and he looked like a guy that, he just didn't know, was it time to jump that pass? Was it time to pull back? In those things, I even saw some today where he looks like his body language, his eyes, just his confidence has progressed a lot. So I'm just looking for Quentin to, make a few more of those plays. And he didn't give up a bunch of stuff last year. He played really good football, but I think there's some plays that he left out there that maybe a vet wouldn't. And I think that's the next step for him is to go get some of those balls.
A couple of guys in that room, the nickels that you're coaching, but who all is in there, and how do you think about sort of tailoring the different skill sets, obviously, that you
Yeah, right now, the guys that are in that room, until we figure out how the back end falls into place. Right now, you've got Isaac Gifford's in there, Chris Kolarvik, as you guys already alluded to, Javen Wright, John Bullock, and Grant Buda are in there right now.
So with Gifford, is he a guy? I mean, could he play sort of a true middle of the field safety if you needed him to?
Yeah, I think. Level? Yeah, I think Isaac could easily go. Isaac's super smart, football wise, especially. So I think that he's got no issue if we want to move him back to safety. Either one, he can play field or boundary. He can play down there in the nickel. But I don't think I like Isaac a lot because of his position plays.
With Javen, I mean, he obviously has
been through a lot health-wise. What is it like to? I mean, for us, I think last month that he was hoping to be able to get out in the field. Do you have him this spring to be able to do quite a bit?
Yeah. So right now, we want to make sure we take it slow with him, so we have him for the season. But right now, he's out there doing limited things, and we'll progress him into full go here. Hopefully, that spring break, as we get 2 weeks in, then we get a spring break. Hopefully, after spring break, that's when we can see if some of these guys that are a little banged up, we can get them back more in a full capacity.
You already Coach Frost better than anyone in this season. How do you look at kind of his keys to talking or Joe Manor, and what does that say about how humble he is and how he's really trying to make it this year?
Yeah, I think as much as all of us want our individual piece to work, we want Nebraska to work. And I think Coach Frost, he's the head football coach, and he has to do whatever he has to do to make the team run more efficiently, improve in some areas where we were maybe down a little bit. And I think that he thought in his heart that hiring somebody he felt comfortable with to be the offensive coordinator could free him up to do a lot of other things. And at Nebraska, there's so many things that go into being the head coach, whether it's meeting with boosters and administration and doing events off campus, but also that allows him to be in special teams more. To be over today, he came over with us to the DBs, and he was in the DB individual drills, and I think those will give those guys on defense a little bit more comfort with him as he's around. But I think that what he's done with the offensive staff is just shows his willingness to make some changes, evaluate the program, evaluate himself probably even, and then what can I do to fix it. And I think right now this is what he feels like is the best way to make the program better, and I'm all for it.
So if you look at attrition going on right now, do you think at all about the first few things that you did in terms of making them feel engaged, making them feel like this is you can stay here and watch something the whole world they're not exactly going to do.
Yeah, I think and it's becoming harder and harder. There's no secret to that. But I think that there's got to be some light at the end of the tunnel, and it's got to be hard, a hard decision. And there's a lot of guys that across the country that probably would like a fresh start, or to be somewhere where they think they'll be more successful. But I think that when you treat the kids right, and when they know that you care about them on an individual basis, it makes that decision really hard. And hopefully we can keep these guys around here for as long as we can, hopefully from the time they start their career to the time they end it. But it's just the way of college football, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I don't make the rules. But now it's become a little bit of a transfer culture, right? If you don't like something, or you feel like somebody talked to you wrong, or you want a different number, or you want a different position, you can just walk out the door, which I think at the beginning of this thing, everybody kind of thought that was a good thing, but it's not. And for a lot of these guys that are leaving across the country, they're finding out that they're not in a better spot than they were, or they're not in any spot because they're just sitting in the portal. But I think when you treat the kids right, and they know that you love them, and they know you care about them, and they know that every decision Coach Chins makes, or whoever my coach is, every decision they make is because they want me to be successful, then it's harder to leave. Not to say that I won't leave, but it's harder.
Is that kind of that factor in the evaluation and stuff like that kind of limited in that?
Yeah, I think it does. I think right now it's more important than ever that the high school young guys that you recruit, there's going to be guys from the portal coming into our program, coming into every program across the country, and those guys are maybe a one semester guy. So that piece is a little bit different. But those guys that you're recruiting in high school now, that's definitely one thing I'm looking at. Is this guy going to stay in our program? Or is it going to get hard early, and he's the guy that could potentially leave? And not that we have the answer. You can't look into a crystal ball and tell it. But I don't think if you're not talking about that piece, then you got a major problem, and you're setting yourself up for a lot of failure. And not to say we haven't made some mistakes in the past doing it, but I think that's something moving forward that's going to be more and more important as when you're recruiting a high school guy.
And that does do with a guy like take it out like Omar, you kind of factor in like that some guys still like
There's no question. Every time that you take a guy in the portal, you might encourage somebody else that they should maybe look for another opportunity for themselves. But once again, this this portal, this transfer culture that college football has created, it's if somebody leaves, somebody else is coming in. It's not like somebody leaves and everybody's like, oh man, I can't believe somebody else is coming in. It's become more like the NFL. A junior left, you better get a junior in to replace him. So but there's always, you got to look at, for every action, what will the reaction be, or what will the potential reaction be?
That's gonna be my question. And when you have a guy coming in, you guys that are in the portal generally are very quick recruitment for probably the going up, guys, how do you, when you get on the field today, I mean, you kind of think, okay, this guy looks how I thought he would look, or how do you kind of approach that with telling people to move around?
Yeah, and I think you were doing that during, we're doing that during the winter conditioning and all those types of things. Every time we went out to one of those drills where the staff was out there, you're kind of looking at those, everybody, the high school guys that are early enrollees, the junior college guys, the portal guys, and you're kind of looking at like, oh man, like please be good, you know what I mean? But fortunately, all the guys that have come into our program right now on defense, like I've been watching them very close. The high school guys, the junior college guys, the transfers, they've all been not only a pleasant surprise by athletic ability, but also by their attitude and their character and their work ethic. So that's been a really surprising, humbling piece of the puzzle, because it could easily go the other way. Well, I think that having the new faces, um, adds a lot to it. And now it could go the complete opposite way. Depending on how those new faces interact with the staff and the rest of the team in that locker room. And like I said, fortunately, the new faces that we've added, coaching staff and player wise, have added a tremendous amount, both with their ability on the field and with their character and just their ability to mesh with the team off the field. So I think that those two things combined have added a ton of momentum for us going into spring ball.
Dawson sort of said naturally that with Blaze and Jamari, they slide up a little bit with Valdez leaving. What you recruited Jamari, didn't you,
Yep.
out of Alabama? What kind of growth have you seen? He didn't play all that much high school football, right?
Yeah. No, Jamari, I'm proud of Jamari because, he plays very limited high school football. He was a basketball guy, and he goes out and he's the best player, and then he comes to Nebraska, and all of a sudden you're buried in the depth chart a little bit, and you're playing scout team, and that one is easy to say, hey, I'm going back to Mobile, Alabama, and he didn't. He fought through it. He worked through it. He's done everything the right way, and now this spring he's going to get a chance to showcase his talents up there, running with the ones and the twos, and I think it's going to be really good. I don't know yet. I mean, that's up to him a little bit, both him and Blaze, but I'm really excited to watch both those two guys because they've done the work, they've done everything that's been asked of them, and now it's becoming a little bit of their time.
Those guys, I mean, obviously, like you said, they have to do it, but just physically, those two are a little bit different frame wise, right? Aren't they the other guys you have playing outside linebacker?
Yeah, I mean they're as compared to they're it's almost like Jamari's a little bit bigger than Caleb, and Blaze is a little bit bigger than Garrett, but they're kind of built the same way, those guys.
Those younger guys, like Caleb Weaver, what did they kind of get out of that first year and where are they
Well, you hope with defensive linemen, like, and that's where it's tough with all these transfer things, right? It's like defensive line, offensive line. In my opinion, and it's just my opinion, but it's really, really hard to play in the Big Ten as a freshman offense or defensive lineman because this is a grown man league. And I think it's hard for some of those guys when they've got buddies, elsewhere or other positions, and their buddies are probably getting to play a little bit on special teams because they're a DB or whatever, and they're saying, "How come you're not playing?" Well, that's not how it works in the Big Ten. This is a league where you must be developed as a defensive line or an offensive line. So I'm hoping what they got out of last year was a little bit of comfort in being in the system and being in this style of play and being in the room with grown men, and then also, in the weight room, in the summer conditioning, the winter conditioning, just being on the scout team last year, they started to realize that even though I'm a young guy, I belong here. I deserve to be here. Now I got to work, and it's going to be my turn to get some real meaningful reps in spring football.
Deshaun sort of been kind of through the college players, and you guys have a pretty exciting game. When they practice, what was your impression of him first months?
Yeah, Deshaun's a pretty quiet guy, but once again, he's one of those guys like all those new guys, however they got here. Um, Gosh, he just came in, he worked, and I watched him, just like anybody would, like the first workout when it's the whole team there and everybody's screaming and everybody's, a little bit worked up. I watched him, he's kind of looking around, he's got the fish out of water look, and then, the next time he's better, and by the third time he looks like he's been here for, 2 or 3 years. So just really happy with the way that he's progressed through this winter conditioning phase, and also just the way that he carries himself. He's up here all the time, looking for Coach Fish, looking for one of the graduate assistants, looking for somebody to watch film with or go over the playbook with. So he's going to be fine because he goes about things the right way, and he wants to get better. Absolutely. I expect all those guys to play, and I expect them to play on defense, and I expect them to play on special teams. We all know that it's just the way life works, but somebody's going to be the starter, and somebody's going to be a rotational guy, but um, all those guys got to come in and play right away.
With Omar Brown, that was even by portal standards, that was a quick one. What did you like about him in the short time you had to evaluate him, and then also, I know he was hurt late last year. Is he able to do some stuff for you this spring, or
Yeah, he's going to definitely be limited for us this spring, but hopefully he'll be able to, one of those guys after spring break. Hopefully he'll be able to get back in there and show us what he's got. Uh, he's just got a ton of good film from the time he was, a young guy till the time he decided to move on. And obviously, me being at Northern Iowa, I got a bunch of resources to call once he gets in that thing and find out. It's not like all these other guys where somebody gets in the portal and I got to go watch the film and try to find somebody to call. The second he goes in the portal, I can call a bunch of guys that have coached there or got done playing there, or guys that were there with him when he was young. So we have a bunch of resources that way. So that was a pretty easy one.
how are you making those portal evaluations? Is it, like you said, probably trying to get good intel on players, maybe why they're in the portal?
Yeah, and I think it was kind of weird at first, but it's become pretty standard. I guess it's a bad word, but at first I was like, man, should I call this guy? He's probably mad that this guy's gonna leave. You know what I mean? But same guys they call me, and my deal is I want to help. I want to help the kids. I want to help my friends that are in the coaching business. So if somebody can help them,